Hi there, I'm Mike Bills with Measurable Solutions, and this is Whiteboard Wednesday. And today we are talking about a very touchy subject of financial convulsions, right? And if you've ever had financial convulsions or delirium tremens related to finances, don't think that you are alone. Every private practice owner of every small business, large business, etc., has had those multiple times in their life. But there's really some simple things to get in play, and your DTs and your tremors related to financial issues will start to be much less. And it really just comes down to you've got to get control over an area that you just aren't really putting much attention on, or the right amount of attention on. So it's really some simple actions. And I'll tell you, there were many a day early on in my private practice years where the small business loan that I had been used up and was gone. And now we were down to having to really live on a day-to-day basis based on our own cash flow. And we didn't really have good processes in place. And so we learned some hard lessons. And there were many a times where I was sleepless nights. And again, that's where some of this gray hair came from early on. And unfortunately, you can't go back in time. But if I can help you to keep from getting all this gray hair and losing it, I will have a huge win. So number one, have a strict weekly budget, right? And that's a weekly budget that everybody's aware of. If anybody has the potential to spend a penny of the clinic's money, they need to know what this budget is, and they need to stick to it. There's no excuses. The treadmill just blew up and caught on fire. We don't have a treadmill. If that's not part of the weekly budget, there's no new treadmill. We're all out of clean pillowcases and laundry detergent. Well, then we're going to have to start scrubbing and washing on rocks and beating it against rocks like they did in the old days, right? I mean, if there's not money for laundry detergent in the budget, laundry detergent can't be bought. Now, what that means is you got to find a way to make sure that you're taking into account everything that you need on a weekly basis to run your clinic. But it's got to be a weekly plan. Don't run your budget on a month or a quarter or anything like that. Sure, you can look at those numbers, but weekly is the key. Weekly gives you a chance to make good savings when you have good weeks and put some money away, but it also gives you a chance when you don't meet that budget to really get a correction in place the very next week, as opposed to waiting till next month, etc. So make sure it's a weekly plan, right? Then you have to make sure that that weekly budget includes your salary and reserves for your clinic. So two things on that. Your salary. Why? You are the most important piece of this practice, and you've got to wrap your head around that. And I'll admit, I did not have my head wrapped around that when I was in the beginning. I thought all of my workers, all of my staff were more important than I was. And so if we were short on weekly budget that week, I would pay everybody else and I wouldn't pay myself. Well, how's that going to work? Because my name's the one that's on the lease. My name's the one that's on the loan from the bank and the credit cards, etc. I'm the one that they're going to come after when those don't get paid. I got to make sure that I'm getting paid, because if I don't exist, this business doesn't exist. And you got to wrap your head around that. So do that. So your salary has got to be part of that. And reserves have got to be part of that weekly basis. And what do I mean by reserves? Reserves is the money you set aside for the what ifs, the rainy day fund, whatever you want to call it. What if United Healthcare doesn't pay me for a month? Do I have enough money to survive? Basically, reserves are the oh crap fund that you never want to touch, but it's there in case you need to. And you don't touch it because you didn't meet your weekly budget. You only touch it when a major catastrophe happens. A hurricane comes through, snow comes through, closes the office for a week, or whatever it might be. But that's what the reserves are for, and you got to have those, and they need to be part of that weekly budget. And then number three, spending is always less than the weekly income, right? Spending is always less than the weekly income. You've got to make sure that you are always spending less. That seems like a pretty easy concept. I challenge you to talk to private business owners, because I do it all the time, that are following that principle. They're spending what they make. And so they're spending what they make because it's there. And you've got to always spend less than what you make. Make sure that you are always striving to make more, but always make sure that that weekly budget is strict and that it spends less than it makes. And when you do, you're going to notice that your convulsions related to your finances are starting to calm down. And ideally, your hair doesn't get gray and you don't feel old and worn down by your business. But you got to get these in. A weekly budget, your salary and reserves part of that, and then make sure that spending is less than what you're bringing in. And if you do that, you'll always be on top. You will always feel relaxed. You will always feel like those convulsions are not under control. Hey, I'd love to hear what you have to think about, not only this topic, but other Whiteboard Wednesday topics. So do me a favor, leave some comments in the section below. I'd love to see that. That's what actually gives me wins, is hearing your wins on things like financial convulsions. So share those for me, please. It'd be greatly appreciated. And I look forward to seeing you for next Wednesday's Whiteboard Wednesday. Great. Have a good day. Take care.